So I think I said to you it was either very early in the morning for you or very early in the morning. Oh, you were stalking the Snarky page. um, that I think I told you that I wanted to start this conversation where we get together with everybody and talk about behavior cases. And then as you and I were talking about what's the dog's name?
Khaleesi.
Khaleesi, oh, of course. Um,
Fan,
I
right?
realized that that might be a really lovely place to start. And the last time you and I did a live on Instagram, it was so, I don't know, we feel like we talked for hours and it was so great. But I thought maybe what we could do is to start where you and I started and give the broad strokes of kind of what you asked me when you first brought the thing to me to talk about. And then we can talk about what happened and sort of then we can go back into some of the things I was thinking it might be, you were thinking it might be, and what it ended up being, and then where we are now. How does that sound for a game plan?
That sounds perfect.
Okay, so first, why don't you tell everybody, just in case there's anyone in the world who doesn't know who you are, kind of like what you do, what your real deal is, how many dogs you have, where you're located, what you do,
So
just to give everybody a sense.
my name is Kerri. I'm located in Southern California. I'm with a company, Real Deal Dog Training. By company, there's only one, two, three, four, five of us. So it's a family business. I'm the only one not related. But we're mainly balance training, but it kind of is not a one size fits all. So whatever works for the dog. We do specialize in personal protection dogs, narcotics detection as well. And then we offer pet obedience and behavior mod. So that is who I am.
What
And
percentage, I just want to ask you, what percentage of the work that you do, I know you do bite sports and protection work, what percentage of the dogs that you work with are along the BMOD category?
I would say, well, it's just like 2 out of 5 of the clients each month are behavior modification. But that always ranges from like minor stuff to more severe stuff. We are a big, let me close my window.
I love the sound of barking dogs. You have what, 6 of them?
I have 7 personal dogs.
7, just a few.
7,
Okay.
just a few, just a handful. Where did my brain go?
Behavior mod percentage rate of the cases.
So some ranging from very mild to some very severe. We are kind of the go-to, especially for a lot of the working breeds behavior modification. We do take a lot of dogs that have not necessarily been failed by their trainers, but they couldn't find someone that would be willing to take on the dog because of either what's the word I'm looking for? My brain has been like mush. The severity of the behavior. So that's kind of where we're at. I think a lot of times too, because of the personal protection and teaching dogs how to bite, which Dave, my boss slash bestie, specializes in, knowing how to teach a dog to do that is a very interesting and very good way to learn on why dogs do those things. Because in order to bring that out in the dog, you need to understand what is making it tick, essentially. So we do see a lot of those. I don't do as many personally of the very, I would say, violent dogs. I'm chronically disabled. I'm chronically disabled, so as far as like really big dogs, I have physical limitations. Like if the dog could outpower me and I could see that it's going to be dangerous, like very dangerous, I'm going to give it to one of the boys to do.
Okay. Not a bad call.
Yeah. It's not going to help the dog if I cannot control the dog, handle the dog.
So let me just throw in here now, in case there are people who are feral followers, Kerri followers, and not of mine, that the last time we spoke, but violent dogs are for me. Yes, those are the ones I live with. Oh, it's a murderous dog. I'll take it. Our last live was really amazing because I am not a balance trainer. I don't, and you are. and I have so much respect for her work. And I think she's so gifted just in terms of her tempo and her movement and her communication skills and the energy that she brings out of the dogs and to the dogs. And so I'm really interested in us all being able to communicate with one another and learn from one another. I'm not looking to do the separation between using tools or not using tools. Force free, I mean, the categories as far as force free and balanced, I think the easiest way to put that is people who are balance trainers will use tools in their training, meaning aversive tools, e-collars, prong collars, what have you. And force free, I think a lot of people define it differently, but they do not use tools. I don't like to put myself in that category or positive reinforcement category either, because it feels too simplistic for me. But I don't use aversive tools primarily because I work with a lot of trauma cases, and for me, the need that I have is different, but also I'm not very good at it. So in answer to your question, so, okay, now we have discussed many cases together, right? We talk about behavior all the time, usually at 6 a.m. or 11 at night. And Kerri reached out to me, I don't know, like a week or two ago with the question of, have you ever met a dog who, I don't remember exact, thank you, Bullies and Shepherds, I don't know your name, but it's nice to meet you. Yes, I'm a big fan of hers as well. Have you ever met a dog who out of nowhere violently attacked another dog? Was it something like that?
It was, so it was regarding the first session. So I've had this dog, Khaleesi, for 3 weeks. It'll be 4 weeks tomorrow.
Have we been talking about it for the, hi Josh, we've been talking about it for that long?
I want to say that it was 2 weeks into it when we first brought out the pugs. So I've had the dog prior to talking to Hillary about the dog, and the dog had been great. I've had it out in public. I've had it around lots of different dogs in group classes, off leash around our cat. Like, and there was a build up because I'll get into that in a second.
It's a Doberman.
It's a Doberman. A history that kind of came along with the dog, but I wasn't seeing anything that was talked about by the owner. And then I'm like, okay, I suggest let's bring the pug out. The dog had been in an altercation with the pug, and the dog literally just went from the nicest, a slightly nervous dog, but sweet and well balanced, to, I won't say, this sounds terrible. Let me reword this so it doesn't sound.
Use words that don't get the live shut down. So don't say anything like red rum backwards,
Yes.
right? Like,
The dog completely raged is the best way, directed at the handler. So the
at the
dog,
handler meaning you.
me, yes.
You
So
were not in a bite. You were in a bite suit.
to start with, I was not. So when the pug first got out of the car with the owner's neighbor, that's who owns the pugs, the dog started trying to redirect. This is not with any tool usage to start with, by the way, because I knew that the e-collar was a trigger. That's why the dog was there.
So wait, just so everyone's clear. So the owner shows up at the facility to meet Kerri. There's a known history of the dog reacting to the pugs, correct? Mm-hmm. Kerri is not in a bite suit. The dog comes out. Is he passing, the owner is passing the dog to you to take back to the facility, or this happened at the facility?
This is at the facility. They were coming for another session with me, this time with the pug, since I had not seen any redirection, aggression towards dogs, people, anything.
And who do the pugs belong to?
They are one of the owner's neighbors.
Property dog. Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay. So
who is
have you coordinated the owner's neighbor dogs to show up to live this out in real life to see what the dog does?
Yeah, so we discussed in the session prior to pug number one, since the dog had been doing so great with everything, let's bring out the pugs. See if your neighbor can make the time in her day to come out, or maybe I can come out there and we can see what's going on.
Okay.
A lot of times I'll see with clients, they might be describing a situation with sometimes emotion than it might have been something more intense than it really was, because it plays a part, especially
Yes.
if you're not used to dealing with animal aggression, animal human aggression, it can be a lot scarier. Sometimes people think two dogs like correcting each other is a dog fight. So dog's doing great. We've kind of reconditioned things, work with food. And so let's see where she's at with this dog. They have to live with it. As soon as the pug gets out of the car, it is literally on site. We were probably like 50, 70 feet away, and the dog starts trying to redirect.
On
So
the
I'm like,
on the owner.
on me. Yep.
On you.
No, on me. Yeah. On me. So I, defensive handling, maintain control of the dog. I tell her owner and our lovely pug owner, come on in, go into the field over here. While I get the dog
And that's a
back
pretty
into a
big
calm state.
distance for a reaction like that.
Yeah. Especially not seeing anything.
Any sign of it. And so did you stiff arm at that point?
Yeah, I just straight arm. And then when the dog kind of settled, I'm like, okay, this was before putting the pants. Let me walk in there and see if we can get her kind of relaxed. I had them stay on one end. We just kind of moved back and forth. Movement usually is very beneficial
Agreed.
for a dog that is kind of over aroused, not knowing exactly what is the cause of this at this point.
Were you unhinged a little bit at that point? Did she land a bite on you, or not? She didn't get to because you were too fast? Okay.
Yeah. So I was not nervous of the dog, but I could see that she was escalating. We went in there and I worked a little bit without putting on protective stuff. And I'm like, let's just go get the suit pants just in case. That way, if she does tag me, like I can stay unreactive, which is not going to help the dog if I lose my shit because she grabs a hold of me. And she will check out. Well, I could do some obedience. She'd take food. She'd take the toy. The way she would take the toy was like she was aggressing the toy versus play. And then the redirection started intensifying. So for a dog that has never seen any type of bite work equipment, any type of bite work, from a protection standpoint, she had a really nice bite and a really nice grip. She was possessing my leg. If I had not been in a suit, I would be in the hospital.
Yeah. So that was where our first conversation was she reached out to me, asked me if I had ever seen behavior like this in a dog before. I'd seen similarities, but the degree to which she described the attempted aggressive assault on her was significant because, as she said, had she not been in a bite suit, she'd be in the hospital. So that's some pretty serious redirect action, right? And that was deeply concerning. So now the real work has to start, and we explored. Sorry to cut you off. I just want to make sure, because we've been talking about it for a while. I want to make sure we remember to give them like the benefit of what that conversation included. So our first thoughts went to, was it something neurological? Because she had been playing with other dogs and there was no sign of like dog aggression or discomfort around dogs. We thought maybe it was a thyroid condition. Could it have been Cushing's? Was it neuro-related? We really didn't know. And in the days to follow, you started trying to work through that situation. And she has an owner that I think we should toss in a little bit about the owner and give some input, because that ended up being a very important aspect of the case.
Yes. So prior to the dog coming to us, she had done, and I'm not going to say the name.
No, of course not.
She had done a e-collar board and train with a company, and this is what the incident that sent her to us. So,
and the dog, I'm sorry, the dog is a year old?
She's slightly over a year, like 13
so
months.
So she's an adolescent, everybody. Let's remember what the brain of an adolescent is, regardless of breed and regardless of temperament.
So she had been with her owner. There's like a community little park in their neighborhood, playing with other dogs. The neighbor with the pugs had come out. At a distance, the dog broke to go over to the pug. The dog was the emergency button that the trainer had told them to use, which would be a very high level of stimulation, was used repeatedly, even as the dog had made contact with the pug. So,
Doberman,
um,
yes.
yes. So there was a dog her size, because she's a good sized Doberman, the damage that actually happened to the pug, well, we don't want to ever see that happen anyways, was just very surface. So for me, hearing that, okay, the e-collar definitely was the reason I think that it escalated to that point from that initial incident. Number one rule with e-collars, and anyone who teaches e-collars needs to tell their clients, is do never use it when your dog is engaged with another dog. Correcting a dog in a fight with another dog, if the dog has already made
Never.
contact, don't use it. Are there some dogs, sure, that they'll stop and they'll come back to you? Yes. But it's a higher percentage of it's going to throw it into a fight versus, come. It's not. The dogs perceive it, especially in that close quarters, that they're actually getting bit by the other dog, especially because of where the placement is. So that is a hard, don't do it ever. This lovely owner was never told about that, and this whole behavior issue started from that event because of improper e-collar usage.
But let me ask you now. The owner is a senior,
He's an older gentleman, yes.
older gentleman. I mean, I'm a senior, fuck. Sorry, TikTok. Not supposed to curse. Older gentleman, kid, grandkids, family around. Nervous about the dog. She's from a breeder. He wanted a reputable breeder, a well-bred dog. But the dog's behavior is starting to make him nervous, and he's a little trigger happy with that
Yeah.
button on the e-collar.
Yeah.
At what point did you determine, after our initial conversations and sort of batting around potential, at what point did you determine that the association was tracking back to the e-collar?
It was, we kind of all brainstormed between us, between our other trainer, between my boss slash bestie, because I had him take an outside look while I worked the dog as well. If he was seeing the same thing that I was, because it was so baffling. And so it's not just the e-collar that's poison for the dog, it's also the word heel. So if you,
The word heel, you said?
yeah. So the dog is anticipating, as soon as it sees that pug, that you're going to tell it to heel, followed by a very high level stimulation. And that is we tried it with no words, and obviously no e-collar, because that was no. And vibration, which is a sensation that the dog has no prior experience with.
That's what you did.
Yeah.
That's not what he did.
No, he.
Yes.
High level.
Is everybody understanding the sequence of all of this? So, okay, so the dog has this incident. He's been trained, she's been trained, Khaleesi's been trained by another trainer who recommended using high levels of correction in the presence of another dog if she wasn't responding, coming into heel. And so what Kerri didn't know at the point that the dog came to her was that now, and this is so common, it's certainly been the case with my dog, and why I was dealing with the levels of rage that I was, is that the sight of another dog begins to equate with correction
Yeah.
and panic, and that escalates, right? And then becomes redirect bite risk.
Yep.
Or actual, not risk, actual
Actually,
redirect.
yeah.
Then there's that, right?
Yeah, and the same thing can happen, and I'm very, I use tools, I'm pro tools when used appropriately, and when you're educating your client on appropriate usage. And they're not for every dog. That's my opinion. I'm sure someone's going to argue with it that you can use them on every dog. I don't think so. So what happens, especially I live with a bunch of very driven, taught to be aggressive dogs. And from experience with that as well, e-collar on those dogs, especially if they're in a fight, and obviously these dogs are trained professionally to bite other people, it's going to escalate that aggression even more. So knowing that as well, when the dog first got here, I knew the e-collar had kind of been effed up. I have to watch my language on TikTok.
Yeah, no, they're going to shut us down. The dog is not with Kerri, Angela, so you got to stick around for the end of it because that's part of what makes this thing so hard. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So when the dog first got here, knowing that it had improper usage of it, to what extent that was going to be an issue for the dog, we didn't know yet. So I started, because the dog only understood obedience with the e-collar. Took the e-collar off, it had no idea what, it just knew stimulation, force into position, and that's it. That was an extent of learning. So I brought in food, taught it, paid it, had a good baseline. Prior to bringing it to group class, all those kind of settings out in public, I wanted to see kind of where the dog was with that, teach it some things.
Were you also, that was also your door opening to starting to establish a relationship with the dog and start to cultivate something other than just correction as a learning model.
Yeah. So she knows, like, she's got, her obedience is beautiful. She knows some fun tricks. The first time that he came out, we have a cat, a barn cat. I always call the freeloader, but he's wonderful. Ozzy. He's actually mine, but he's a terrible barn cat. And the owner came, and Khaleesi's just sitting next to me, and the cat's just being Ozzy, a mooch. And he looked kind of panicked, and I'm like, okay, why are you nervous right now? He's like, she's not trying to go after the cat or anything. I'm like, no, like, Ozzy is great because he'll just come and help himself to every drop snack.
The owner looked panicked?
Looked panicked, yeah. And this was before seeing everything. And I'm like, that's weird that he's so nervous of this dog and this cat. So kind of was like, okay, that's weird, but
you noted it. It went into
I noted it, yeah. And so I had been working, because the cat's always around, especially when there's food, on she sees the cat. If you check out and come back to me, I pay you. And then you can go and look at the cat again. There's nothing wrong with looking at what's around you, you know? And so we're doing this session. The cat's just kind of creeping around out on the field. And I turn her loose. It's in a fenced area. And we're doing obedience. And I'm showing him. And something startles the dog. And she barks. And then she comes into a heel to her owner. He looks nervous. And I'm like, why are you nervous? And he's like, I thought she was going to bite me. I'm like, why would you think she was going to bite you?
She'd never bitten him before, right?
She had bit him on the leg, but he had not disclosed that yet.
You left that part out with me. Okay.
Yeah. So he discloses to me after, like, I'm like, why do you think she's going to bite me? Because she's bitten me before. Why did she bite you? So the first redirection thing with the dog came into play. I knew that the dog had gone after the dog, but not the aftermath. Sometimes people will feed you details. A lot of times it can be because, coming from a place of embarrassment, like, and I get that, like, and it's always more beneficial, and this is not a knock at the owner at all. Whatever has happened,
tell the truth.
Tell the truth.
Tell the truth.
It's only going to help you and your dog and me understand your dog, knowing all of the facts of the story. So the dog didn't. She came to him like, pet her. Like, she's just looking for guidance in that situation where she got startled. We're just using food at this point. And he's like, I really didn't want to use food. And I'm like, well, we're using food. That's not negotiable, especially from what I'm seeing with the dog and her lack of understanding on what to do as far as obedience without the e-collar. For me, the dog should know what you're asking before that ever becomes a choice as a tool. Right. He was happy with their progress. He's like, okay, can we do some tricks? Because he was getting excited about it. So we threw in some tricks. The next time I saw him, I had sent him a video of the dog off leash on our property with the cat, and we're fully fenced on 4 acres. He's like, she's not going after the cat. And the cat's just laying on his back, and Khaleesi's just hanging out. And I'm like, no, like, she's not, there's no small animal aggression there. Like, she's fine. She's free. She's getting snacks. The freeloader's getting snacks. And then I'm like, let's bring the pug, because I haven't seen anything behavior-wise.
And she is not on the collar at this point?
No. She's been wearing the collar because I knew there was kind of a bad connotation, and getting food.
So in your mind, I'm guessing, knowing you and how we discussed it, in your mind, you wanted the collar to be in place, but for her not to have any sensation from it in the presence of potential triggers.
Yeah.
So that was deliberate, not to remove it, not to make it not a thing, but to allow it to be part of what you were doing without it being
Having this negative.
this, yes, being associated with what she had come to understand it to mean.
Yeah.
Okay.
So after that, I had started, this is like a very composed or compressed version. I had started reintroducing the e-collar at very low levels, which is all that she needed, instead of these very high, and I'll get into that, in obedience. So the way that I introduce the e-collar is first the dog learns what to do. Obedience. We're not talking the behavior yet. And then I'll overlay it. I'll find the number, and it starts, say it's a sit, low level stim, the dog sits, feed the dog.
But you were using vibrate, correct?
This was later on.
Okay.
So this was in reintroducing the e-collar in the way that he wanted to use it for off leash, outside of around dogs, small animals and stuff. This is just me and her in our training building.
Okay. Gotcha.
Giving her a new perspective on the e-collar. Didn't use it around dogs. We did the group class. She's fine. No e-collar, just food, happy. When the pugs came, no e-collar, just leash and collar. And as soon as the pug got out of the car, on site, and it escalated. So the next session, this was a week later.
Directing you again?
So the first session, yes. The second session she did, but it was very minimal. So prior to that second session with the pugs, I have a few small dogs here right now. So we had another trainer bring them out. A couple little doodles, no reaction. We brought out
Wait, Kerri, 1 second. Ryan, is that Ryan Olson? I can't tell by the icon. The reason I'm asking about vibrate is because at some point she was working on vibrate, and I just wasn't sure at what point that changed over in the training sessions. That's why I mentioned it.
Yeah, so the vibrate we started integrating in. I had our other Dave, my boss, come out and watch around these little dogs to see if he saw something different than I saw. We talked about it linked with the e-collar, and we kind of both had come to the conclusion that the e-collar is the issue, especially with that dog. After the first pug incident, I wanted to see if there was going to be any, what is the word I'm looking for? If she would start reacting to other dogs, because she hadn't at this point. It had just been the pugs. So I brought out another trainer with some of our smaller dogs that we have right now. First dog, no reaction, wants to play with it. Like, she's a very, like, this is the shittiest part, is she's a very friendly, social dog.
Curious. She's healthily curious.
Yeah, and she was curious about it. She tries to play bow. She does, if you've ever been around Dobermans, they're very kind of goofy dogs. She's rolling on her back, just being like a spaz, and like I'm, letting her, not in a super close proximity, but letting her be a dog.
Letting her be a dog, right.
And no stress. So she's happy with the first dog. So we have a little guy named Jean-Pierre. He's a French bulldog here right now. So we brought Jean-Pierre. Like, she kind of looks puggish, similar color. Jean-Pierre, she was a little bit more trepidatious when he came out, and she tried redirecting the first time, very minimal. Like, it would have been like probably not even break the skin. So we tried the vibrate, and she just like, oh, what was that? And then you could see the body language go back to relaxed, check back in, happy. Then she starts being inquisitive with the pug. So I'm like, cool, the vibrate.
Massive shift from attacking you at the sight of a pug.
Yeah. So
it speaks very well of her potential.
Yeah.
I want her.
Because she's a wonderful dog. And it's just, it's really upsetting for me that the course of this dog's life with its owners has changed because of really shitty training advice and training.
Right. So the overview of this case is that the training that they started with was so poorly handled. The dog at such a young age, this entire thing is so upsetting. Like I was in tears yesterday when we were talking, but the the owner is extremely trigger happy and nervous, which is a terrible conversation. Tools, no tools, just to communicate with a powerful breed in any case, any dog for that matter. And now, in a really fast period of time, Kerri has been able to kind of reboot the thinking process of the dog, get her to start expressing herself differently, making good choices. The owner seems to be quite determined. It's like it sounds like, I don't mean to judge him, but it's so common and so unfortunate that now we have so many people. I want a Doberman. I want a Malinois. I want a German Shepherd. I want to do protection sports. I want to do bite sports. Get the e-collar and make them do all of these without actually shaping the mind and the relationship with the dog. And now we have a dog that the sight of another dog sends a signal that they immediately go into a frenzy that is dangerous for the handler. And what Kerri was concluding towards the end of this conversation, as we got into it yesterday or the day before, or whenever it was, I don't even remember, that the dog is unlikely to be safe to place at this point.
Yeah, because the dog, like, if for once you're as a handler, and I'm sure there's a handler out there that not necessarily a trainer that could be flawless with this dog. The last meeting with the pug we had on Friday, and she tried redirecting once on me, but we implemented what we've been doing with the vibration. And then she relaxed. She tried to play with the pug. We had a very close proximity. Both dogs are playbound. She's being a goober. I hand off to the owner because our lovely friend of the owner of the pugs, who's awesome, she's like, "You need to handle your dog." And he and I under and I yeah he is, because that doesn't matter if I can do it. It needs to be transferable.
And
he tried. He's too nervous that the dog is going to bite him, and she will. That's if he gets nervous. If someone was there to guide him every day, this is what you need to do. We're going on a walk. Be relaxed, loose leash. Don't nervous. Your dog was just trying to play with you. She's a Dobie, and he lets her bounce on him, and she's trying to play with him. Then he gets nervous because he's been bit before. That she's trying to bite him, which sends the dog into a panic, and the panic causes the dog to redirect. I don't think I cannot fix that in the handler. And that's not a knock against the handler, because I understand what it feels like to get bit by a dog. I've been bit a few times.
We'll get to that in a second, Aline. The dog is going to go back to the breeder, right?
Yeah.
And we don't know what's going to happen from there.
Yeah, we don't.
You can't keep her.
No. And so we're going to the owners on Wednesday. We are going to do session with him.
He's with the owner right now because he's afraid of her, but he's afraid to give her back because he loves her.
He loves her. Like, he spent a lot of money, and this is not a monetary thing. He spent a lot trying to fix the problem that was caused. And because he loves the dog, and she's a great dog 95% of the time, but I can't, as a trainer, tell him and give him a guarantee that something might make the dog panic and she might go back to redirecting. If over time, if he, like, every day was doing these very intensive behavior sessions with the dog, over time, you might lessen that. But I can't guarantee that it won't ever come back, because there's these things called singular learning events. And sometimes that one event is enough to cause lasting damage that can be managed, but might not ever go away, or go away in a period of time that you're going to notice until, like, the dog's, very old.
Right.
And stuff
And
like
this is such an important thing that you're saying. And, like, if I didn't have Jude, I would take her. You know what I mean? If he could transport her to me, because I firmly believe that I could rehabilitate that in a way that would never cause her conflict or to practice that behavior again. I don't own a bite suit, but that's not a big deal. I'm
No,
teasing. But
you can manage, like I could do without a bite suit. I know for
I was
me,
kidding. I was kidding.
no, you
But
can definitely do it. I think it's nice to have the tool, especially like I
sure,
can't
of
personally,
course.
I afford to get mauled every day
Oh no, no, no,
to
no.
work.
None of us can.
Um,
I would
and
get a bite suit, but I
and
think
I
I
think
was
it
going
would
to
be,
say I was going to say that it took me 3 years to get my dog to stop having the response, the rage. The level of rage was so intense that it took me that long for his mind to go, I'm not upset anymore.
yeah.
At the sight or the sound of another dog was instant. Someone's going to get hurt. It's going to be you or it's going to be the dog, meaning me.
Yeah.
But she sounds so resilient. I mean, I'm not trying to sound like I have a
No.
safety complex, but my heart is breaking because we don't know what happens.
Yeah, she
She's
is,
not,
and
I'm not, she's not going to
she
Tara. No, that's
she's
not
a
an option.
beautiful dog. She's a wonderful dog. She's intelligent. She's a young dog. Like there's so much good, and that's the messed up part
Yeah.
is the dog is the one that is suffered in all of this, because the dog would have been this. She still is, and I do think that if she gets placed, or even if the breeder keeps her, that the dog, you could change the behavior over time with consistency. And she's great. Like she's and I'm not usually a Doberman super fan, but she's just a very lovely dog. She's very sweet. Like when I have her out, because I have her out like to run around and train and stuff still outside of the behavior work, and she's lovely. She wants to come and cuddle with you. Like I'm not afraid of her just attacking me because we're sitting next to each other, if you know what I mean. I know it's very clear what sets her off at this point. And someone had talked, not on here, but I'd speaking, well, why don't you could suppress it with the e-collar? You could, but here's the thing with that. At some point, and we were just talking about this as well, you're going to cause an even bigger explosion. So
Yes, I don't know why people don't understand that. I was talking to Kerri about this trainer whose name I would not mention. Angela, I don't think, would you take her? You can't take her. Angela's in California. She has two Dobermans. You know her, right? You guys know her. Yeah. I don't, what was I going to say? Oh, the concept of trying to just put the dog on an e-collar to manage all behavior. I was starting to talk about this trainer that you and I have talked about, who will remain nameless, that takes on aggression cases, and does board and trains in the home, and talks about how they want to, I won't even give the gender because I don't want to reveal anything, but they want to see the behavior, If the dog's going to attack, then we want to see the attack. But that does, and what I respected so much in what you had to say as we were discussing this is that you blatantly said, I don't think this dog is safe to place. And that, as sad as it may be, is so important because the other trainer is like, yeah, now you see, I put it around a kid, I put it around adults. This dog is A-okay. And that isn't the case because that trigger response can come back at any time. And, hitting it with the e-collar is not the answer. You
yeah,
never use trazodone for a dog who has a bite history ever.
yeah, trazodone can cause.
It affects what's called bite inhibition, which means that a dog who might just put their teeth on you will lose the inhibition to stop that bite from becoming deeper. But that's sedation. And we don't want to sedate a dog we're trying to do behavior modification with because we need the cognitive function for learning. So yeah, a medication I'm all for behavior meds. My dog was on quite a few behavior meds just to reboot the brain and have some chemistry balance, but he's on almost nothing now and he's better than he ever has been. But I had feelings about the e-collar for dogs who have the potential for seizure activities. Mine does. So, there's a lot of things to look at, but that's why I thought this was such an interesting case for us to talk about. because it is a young dog and it is a dog that has such tremendous
Yeah.
potential. I suspect that if as much time, because it's so early in her life, went into unlearning that response, that she would have tremendous potential.
Yeah, I think absolutely she would, especially if someone kept following through with it. I'm a big proponent in you can't avoid everything in life. I don't like to trigger a dog every day,
Completely agree. Yes,
but
you
in
have to
life
live in the world.
you have to live in the world. So teaching the handler, teaching the dog how to live, and then also how to counter condition stuff. Bring more peace into the dog's life is very important. And it has to be the right handler. I think once you are afraid of the dog, it's in a disservice to both of you. Because just like, dogs, sometimes we try our best to
Yeah,
get out of that fear, and subconsciously we're still like, oh,
you
and
scare them.
that triggers it, with the dog. It's not your energy, it's the way that you're holding the leash, the way that you're moving. Everyone said that the dogs sense the fear. They can smell spikes and cortisol and stuff like that. But typically when we're nervous, we do the same weird shit. Like, I know when I get nervous, I tense up.
Release all
Yeah.
of it. Yeah.
And the dog, especially if the dog is struggling in that moment as well, now you're both struggling together. It's just a cluster.
Yeah, and you have to trust your instincts, which I think your instincts and the way that you dealt with this was so heroic, really, and it's why I adore you so much. I was just reminded of a few years ago walking into a kennel at a shelter with a very large. It was a hound something, but I don't remember what it was, but it was an enormous dog. And there was something about it. And I thought, this dog is going to attack me. Something I could just, small space. And it was like sniffing at me incessantly, like it was seeking, like, let me find a reason. Just like, let's just get out of here. And he ended up ultimately being euthanized because he did not attack me, but he did attack somebody else. And he was not, but I could feel it. And I was nervous around him because he was so unstable. And it was these tight, confined spaces. So there are times that dogs will make you feel like, yeah, this is not going to end well. And that you have to trust your instinct.
Yeah.
But you were able to look for something to not leave it on the note where that's just who she is and that's where she's going to end up. So now, so she's with the owner now and legally has to go back to the breeder, right?
Yeah, so she's with me till tomorrow, and then we're taking her. We're not having him pick up. We're taking her back. She is a very well-bred dog. She has an ethical breeder. In the contract, the breeder gets first right of refusal, which I think is great. And since
She's fully muzzle trained.
yeah, she's muzzle trained and all that stuff. And she's great in a muzzle. Like, she doesn't. It's like it's not even there, which is fantastic. So he's gonna get a replacement dog from the breeder, free of charge, and we'll see what the breeder does. I'm guessing because the breeder's been around for a long time. She's gonna do right by the dog. Which ways, I don't know. If she ends up keeping the dog herself, like, obviously she's experienced in the breed as well. And we're going to give her kind of our recommendations for that.
Do you have any idea whether or not the trainer that they went to initially was recommended by the breeder?
I don't think so. The breeder is not local to down here. So
Okay.
the training center is local to him. He sent his other dog there. So I'm guessing that's why they went with that trainer. He has another.
Is she at risk of euthanasia?
What was that?
Is she at risk of euthanasia?
This dog, yes. If she doesn't go with the proper thing, then yes, because it's not a matter of
She can't rehome her.
when. No, you can't rehome her.
Unless it was to a professional who was willing to take her, right?
Yeah, unless it was a professional, or the breeder went and continued professional behavior modification with the dog. But she's not at this point because for me, like the amount, it was the wildest thing I've ever seen. And I've seen quite a lot for only one dog to trigger. Eventually, it's not going to be just a single dog, in my opinion, especially if they continue to try and use the e-collar to
Right.
force the dog, pressure the dog. You're
Right.
only going to get a very catastrophic thing happening.
I'm so upset about this case. I can't even process. I know you are too. I'm not going to say I'm more upset than you are because you're with the dog, but I wish I could see her. She's there with you now.
Yeah.
Can you bring her?
Yeah, she has. I can't right now. I
Okay.
can't right now. Just because we have kennels and stuff in and clean, and I don't want her to get riled up. Right now, I got her
No,
inside.
no, no. Understood. You have to send a
Um,
picture of her. I want to see her.
and yes, the dog has made progress. Rue and Mac, and that's kind of, I guess, bittersweet because like she could continue. The owner wanted to keep her here longer, and while that would benefit the dog, if he is going to keep
He's
the
not going
dog,
to feel
yeah,
differently when it comes back.
yeah, the dog being good with me, being good with the other trainers does not mean it's going to be good with him because we're not worried necessarily about getting bit by the dog because as a professional, we know how to handle if the dog was to redirect, how to stop that and stuff like that. A lot of times with owners, especially if they've been bit by the dog, they are not thinking in that moment on just being calm and getting control of the dog. They're trying to actively it's panic. You go into panic. People either freeze or they panic, just like dogs, you know?
Yeah. So in the moment that, just let's talk about some professional choices for a second, because I think it's important for people to understand like all of the things that maybe it's not, maybe they don't care, but these are things that I think anyone who owns dogs should be aware of. And especially if you're dealing with dogs who have big behaviors or large, powerful breeds, the part of my private clients always have to go through the process of learning how to be a strategic and tactical handler because you can't just put it all on the damn dog. It's just not appropriate to expect them to know what to do in every situation or to not know that you're there to provide some sort of through line or communication or guidance about what's happening in the environment. That's our jobs as handlers, as trainers, as teachers, owners, whatever. So in the moment that the dog attacked you, was completely unexpected. You immediately switched into defensive handling skills, which have to be razor sharp and lightning fast. There is no time for thinking in that moment. And that's something that people who only have that, if they've had the experience to work with dogs who are challenging. But immediately after she started to decompress, you did not put her up, right? You just kept her out and to sort of reboot.
Yep.
So, which is a very important choice. We call that in the shelter CPR, continue, play, regroup, or reset, so that you're not having the last experience that was a negative experience be where you left the dog's mind,
Yep.
because that has to wash
Yeah.
or rinse or whatever you want. Wash and rinse.
You have to get the dog to a better point before ending your session. Otherwise, that's where you're going to start the next session. It's the same thing too from on the flip side. Say you're dealing with reactivity, and I have a dog, be relaxed and calm through a group of dogs, through a single dog, whatever that trigger may be. Mm-hmm. I'm going to end that session before the dog has a chance to
go south,
go back into it. Otherwise, you're going to be out there longer. It's better to end on that high note than like with anyone. If I'm sitting in a room with a bunch of people that I don't like, that are antagonizing me, at some point, the longer I'm in there, the chance of us butting heads is going to get higher versus let's end on an adult, nice note and leave versus continuing. No, I know like in life, like we talked about real life, sometimes you can't escape all of those things, but there's many ways in any environment that you're in to end on a better note, whether that means you gave yourself distance, maybe that means you kept walking and then gradually made your way back into whatever it is was triggering and then walked back out again. It's the same thing with the dog. So even on the first session with the pugs, and how insane it was like almost a 2-hour session. We ended on a better note where she had relaxed, and we had a kind of had a starting point onto where to begin with the next session with the pugs and kind of where to continue. But it's very important that that dog leaves happy. It's the same thing with the last session we did with the pugs. We had been wanting to end the session, and then Bruce decided, the owner decided that he would like to try after our pug friend, our pug neighbor encouraged him to do so. We probably should have ended it sooner, but he is the owner of the dog. Let's see if we can help you through it. Obviously there was negative with that. I took the dog back, handler got a relax skin, and then we had the owner do it again, and he did good. He was still markedly very nervous, so we only pushed him to a point where he was comfortable, I guess, as far as proximity, and ended it there. And I took the dog. We all sat and talked. The dog was relaxing. The pugs, who are lovely, by the way, probably the most well-behaved pugs ever. These two little old cuties, just hanging out. So that was the last thought that the Doberman had with them. So it's just a shame because I do think a lot of progress could be made, but it has to be with the handler.
Right. And so after the original incident happened, you and Dave talked about, hold on, let me move this little sheep puzzle together so I don't get whatever this is, this TikTok thing. I'm in social media and I are just like, what are we doing?
Why don't I get a puzzle to solve right now?
Because I'm the host. I have to put the sheep's head back on its body. Once that initial situation happened, you were there dealing with it alone. How did you determine what direction you wanted to take moving forward with the behavior modification?
So after that initial first session, I literally afterwards sat there. I talked for quite a long time with the two other trainers that we had.
Well, your adrenaline must have been pretty high. You've just been attacked.
I have a very
high tolerance for that.
High tolerance, and it's probably like this is gonna sound terrible. So I also have PTSD, so I'm very good at compartmentalizing things and just kind of going into like a relaxed state, which is good for the dogs. Maybe not so good for like the way that I handle life.
But there's some residual, like at some point it shows up and you go, wow, that just happened. Never in the moment, right? Like you stay chill in the moment, but you do have to regroup at some point and go back in with the dog that attacked you.
Yeah. But it wasn't like, I don't hold it against the dog, because even as in that first session when she was going after me, even though she was biting me, I had on protective equipment, the aggression wasn't directed at me.
It was redirect. It's different.
It's different because it's almost, when you know you have a dog that is straight out human aggressive, it's not that I handle it differently, but you know that dog is going to try and eat you, versus it's not coming from a place of I want to eat you. Because it was the weirdest. She'd come back next to me, after I got her to stop biting me. Yeah. And I could pet her. She would take food. Like,
it didn't mean anything to her. It wasn't personal.
Didn't mean anything, yeah.
Yes, I know. Very different.
A lot easier to stay checked out because I don't take it personal. Like, I've had a dog that definitely wanted to eat me, and I declined doing other sessions with it before, and it's not because I didn't love the dog and the people, it's because I would die. That if the dog actually got a hold of me, the ambulance wouldn't get here fast enough. And the owner for that particular dog, the first time it tried to bite me in the face, was frozen in what to do. And, I'm not the smallest girl, but I'm like, in my heyday, when that original dog, I think it was like $130, and it was like a 140-pound dog. So there's only so long that I can sit there and stop the dog from biting me before I'm going to get tired.
Yeah.
So I'm like, this is my line. Like, I will instruct you how to handle your dog, but I will not take the leash of that dog again. because it's not,
I've been in exactly the same. I told you the dog was in my lap trying
yeah.
to keep my face off. That's all I could do. I was like, please remove the dog and take it a little bit further away. She tacked the leash with her foot, but let go of the handle. And the dog launched. The leash came out from under her foot. It was in my lap. And I mean, yeah, it got a pretty bad bite. But calm, just like, but I always want to go back in and try again, like
Yeah.
crazy.
You want to
Make it better.
make it better, especially like when and you've gotten to know the dog that it could be better. And that's, I think, the most frustrating. The dog could be better,
Right.
especially if it, continued. And if the handler, and I don't think that this handler is able to do that, and that's okay. Like,
No, for sure.
it's not because he doesn't love the dog and doesn't care and wouldn't give his world, but it's not worth him having something bad happen to him.
Equipment failure is risky.
It's not,
Well,
yeah,
do you
it's very
feel
risky.
that and then I'm going to ask you one more question, and then I'll open it up for people to ask questions if they have any. It sounds to me that although, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm always wrong, but it sounds to me that although it's very clear at this moment in time that while she displayed some pretty gnarly behavior, that it could be reshaped quickly and redefined in the right hands.
I
If
won't say, I don't say necessarily quickly, because I guess it depends on your definition of quickly. I think
I'm saying up until now it has been quickly that
it
you were
has,
able to.
yeah.
So, but where I was going with this is that in the wrong hands moving forward, that what started as a redirect bite, should she be put back on the e-collar, continue to get a lot of
Yeah.
correction, that is not going to be redirected, is going to be out and out human aggression.
Yeah,
That's the risk.
that's what I'm seeing. That's the risk, and that's like, it's
Ugh.
just
I can't. It's so shitty.
shit.
Do you
There's
guys
other words
have
that I like to
questions? You
say.
can type them in the chat because we forget to look. Just in case anybody wants to ask. Can you see what's going on there, Kerri?
Let me read down.
Hi, Vanessa.
Yeah, acknowledging, like, and I think the hard part for the owner too is because of how lovely the dog is, it's very hard to let go of that. And I think too, there's probably a level of guilt and the feeling of failure as well. And I think for anybody, and it's not necessarily failure, because it's not that he didn't fail the dog. He went to professionals trying to help his dog to be a great member of society, and he was failed, and the dog was failed.
Right.
Yeah.
So let me ask you something. I know I said I was going to let everybody else ask you, but I'm all really interested. That went out the window. Well, that was fast. Good luck. In an effort to educate the public and pet guardians who are looking for professional help, I mean, I deal with over-arousal and excitement and reactivity all day.
Yeah, well, all day.
All day, yeah. In an effort to help people, what do we tell them to look for when they're seeking professional guidance to prevent this from happening?
So
This is the most hard. I mean, it's one of many horror stories, but it happens too often.
Yeah. My biggest thing when looking at a trainer, and like I said, I'm very much not against tool usage. I use them on my personal dogs when it's appropriate and if it's taught appropriately. The biggest thing is going to someone who's not, their only method of training is not the e-collar goes on the dog. While there are some people, and I know of some trainer that might be on this app, can teach with the e-collar and be flawless and have the dog be beautiful and flat. They're not teaching it in the way that most of these franchise places are, which is raise the level until they go. They teach a dog a way of communication through tactile sensation. So that out of the way. If the only thing that they're doing is putting a prong collar, an e-collar, a slip collar, and that's the way they're teaching it through only pressure, run for the hills. For me, even when we have clients that want to do an e-collar, before I ever introduce that, because e-collars don't outsource relationship. If you're not willing to put in the work, whether it's food, whether it's toys, personal play, and teach the dog what to do first, we're not getting to that second part with the tool. It should enhance the training, not be the only training. So that is, for me, a really important thing with
Hi, Ryan.
personal dogs. And there's one exception with my personal dogs aside. I typically don't even introduce the tool if I need it until maybe like a year or 2 years old. Now, there has been exceptions to that rule. I've had a dog that she's deceased now, a female Corso that was going to be euthanized very shortly, not after birth, but as a puppy, because she was trying to kill all of her litter mates. She was very dog aggressive. I introduced the tool very young with that dog through obedience and stuff. And as an adult dog, she could be around other dogs and you wouldn't ever know she was dog aggressive. We had such a good relationship and such clear communication on what was acceptable in the presence of dogs and what was not. Because of relationship and also because of understanding of the tool and what the tool meant for her, that she never experienced any dog fights as an adult dog. So you need to be very careful in the way you use tools, and your trainer uses tools. And if you want to use an e-collar on your dog, for me, you need to understand thoroughly how to use that. And I'll do a lot of sessions where we actually wear the e-collars and not the dogs. If you cannot direct me in what to do.
I was taught on it, wearing it myself too, yeah.
If you cannot have the right timing on me, and I'll tell you, if I'm a dog,
don't you dare put it on the dog.
Then you're not ready to have it on your dog yet.
It's not uncommon, Ruin Max. Sorry, puppies. They can be wired wrong. They can be predisposed in utero. There's so many reasons that dogs go wrong. But
yeah, and specifically for that dog, so I've met quite a few dogs from her same line. It's from a breeder out here. All of them very deep-seated dog aggression. It was a trait of that line. I love the dog. She was a wonderful dog. She went to a wonderful family. I trained her for the first 2 years, and then we placed her with the family. Great with them, great with the kids. Just a wonderful family dog, and she passed earlier this year, devastated because she was such a great little girl. She just didn't like dogs, and that's okay. When
are people going to accept that dogs don't have to like dogs, that they don't have to be social with other dogs? I get so much flack about that. Like, why aren't you, introducing him to dogs? Because he doesn't like them. Yeah. He's very happy without them in his life. There's no reason for it.
Is it great if you have a multi-dog household and your dog are all very social with each other? Absolutely. It's fantastic. But they don't need that. Even within my group that I have now, some like some of the group, some don't like some of the group. And all I expect is neutrality. And I kind of nurture that from a young age, that you don't have to be in each other's space, but we don't have to act like asshats around each other. And I won't ever set you guys up to be in a situation where you need to act like asshats to each other. Right. But I am very respectful of my dog's personalities, what they like, what they don't like. And, that's how we work so well.
Yeah. Who else has questions over social? That comes with its own set of challenges. I know, Doodles especially. Hi, Kim. Nice to see you. You're here a little late. We talked about the case already. So maybe we should send it to Ryan in Florida. Ryan, I don't know when you got here, but we're talking about, I'll just recap do you mind, Kerri, are you racing?
No, I'm not racing. I was just reading.
We're talking about a case study. We're going to be doing case studies more regularly around here because I think it's important for you guys to kind of learn from professionals or people that do this all day long. And case studies are always interesting in terms of not just like the dog behavior, but how do we evaluate what we want to do in terms of behavior modification, what works, what doesn't, what are we looking at? In this case, we're talking about around Ryan. I'm talking to you just in case we can bring you. You have thoughts on this? A 1-year-old, give or take a month or so, Doberman from a breeder in California who, now I know your lot is full right now, but the case is that the dog was, the man got her from a breeder. She was trained initially by an unskilled trainer who was very, very heavy handed on the e-collar and taught the owner to be the same way, and never really taught the dog anything, but pretty much punished her if she did anything that looked like it was going to be a reaction to another dog. Dog begins to associate other dogs with pain. Behavior starts becoming worse. She bit the owner. He did not disclose that to Kerri. They then bring the dog to, this is the short version, then bring the dog to Kerri's group for board and train. And was it board and train? Yes, right? Yeah. And wanted to work this dog around the dog that she originally struggled with, which was a pug. Dog has been great around cats, great with other dogs. At the point this pug came out, fortunately, Kerri was in a bite suit. The dog mauled her. And it was redirect, not, not coming out of human aggression. It was all in reaction to this dog that she's been previously punished at high levels for responding to. And very quickly, Kerri turned that around and started to rehab the behavior and work her through it. And she's doing beautifully, but the owner is a senior and afraid of her and is not comfortable handling her, but doesn't want to give her up. And she's likely going to have to go back to the breeder. They have the first right of refusal, or, they're take the dog back, and the outcome is not going to look good for her because her risk of redirect and damage is too high at this point. And it's a very sad case because she has so much potential. So that's okay. 9 new messages. Let me see. Okay. Ryan needs the pug. No, I don't think Ryan needs the pug.
The pugs are like this. The pug is the sweetest. Like someone had asked the other, like, was the pug nurse? Probably the most well balanced pug, friendliest dog in the world, just hanging out, not a care in the world, unbothered by anything that's going on. Like, I'm like, oh, that's a beautiful pug.
I don't know any neutral dogs. I never have an opportunity to work with neutral dogs. It just not, I think if one came my way, I would be like, what is that? Is that a dog?
It was so, the neighbor who I think has, really gone above and beyond to try, because she loves the dog too, even after what had happened.
Right.
And it going after her dog, you can see through her dog that, she's done beautifully. It's the most level-headed, balanced dog ever. Like I said, like unfazed. And I'm sure part of that is, genetics. But she obviously did a wonderful job because, wow. So, right. But even her commitment to coming out with the owner to try and help, make it work, give him the opportunity to practice. Like she offered, if she stayed longer too, to keep coming and doing sessions. That's like
an amazing neighbor. Really, and I don't want a golden retriever. I was attacked very badly by a golden retriever. So no.
Golden retrievers can be very.
Yeah, I nearly lost a finger to a golden retriever. It was my house looked like a Manson festival. It was awful.
I think with the Goldens, like kind of off topic, there's obviously very delightful ones. That's the reason the breed has like the history of, being this very friendly, social. And then there are the ones that are, and it's not the dog. It is the dog, but we're the one who made the dog. So it is our fault that are, the spawn of the underworld. And you're like, how did you go from like this beautiful bouncy thing to like, I'm going to murder your entire family?
Well, I would love for you, if you can, to find out what the potential is to place that dog with a skilled person.
Yeah, because I would love to see her like continue on with someone, even if it's that's the breeder and the breeder keeps her on as one of their dogs. It's not a huge breeder. So if they have the time and the means to do that and continue on with, the behavior modification, or if they are able to find a professional willing to take her and continue on with it. She's a very lovely dog. Like at that, not that every dog doesn't deserve a chance, but she really has the potential to
She's
move
shown
past
too
this.
much potential for her. I mean, okay, Pat, bye. Yeah, it's just a heartbreaking situation. Do you think you'll be able to hear what happens to her?
I think so. I think so. Like the gentleman has been very happy with the progress that she made. Like, and he understands. Like, because all of us spoke to him very in depth. Like, I can't tell you what to do with your dog, but these are our concerns and why this might not be the right fit for you at this point. And I'm sorry that happened to you, because she was the right fit until before training. But he's a very lovely gentleman. He actually, since she's been here, has referred more people to me. So I think that he will.
But he's afraid of her. He'll get hurt. There's no
Yeah,
question
and
about it.
that's my thing. Like, and I wish it could be a different way, but I think he's a wonderful person, and I don't want to see him get hurt. And normally too, like, I keep thinking in my head, what if I hadn't asked to bring the pugs out and I never saw the behavior,
Right,
and I sent the
right.
dog home
Because he
and
didn't
it
tell you
mauled him?
that she bit him the first time.
No.
Do you know
And
how deep, was that a serious bite or just totally a flesh wound?
So it was, I would say it was a typical, like, very kind of in the moment redirect. So there was 2 holes, not super deep, but it did break skin. There was no thrashing. There was no tearing. It was more like I didn't like what you did. I scolded you. But seeing that and then seeing how that escalated from when I saw her, it would only get worse. So two holes too many. 2 holes too many. It'd be different, like, because we'll see a lot of dogs, like, and I have a lot of the herder crosses as well, that over arousal get nippy, but it's different than different kind of bite. And sometimes people explaining that, like, okay, the dog got annoyed, so it scolded you, where it snapped and you happened to get scratched, is different than the dog saw you trying to come near its thing and it straight out, like, grabbed your hand and shook. There's different levels to bites. There's different kind of intent behind bites.
Yes,
you have to look at, like, the big picture behind the bite, like Malinois puppy, for example. Movement, anything that moves, it wants to chase it and nip. It's, especially the ones that we breed for, supposed to be a little bit higher prey. So for a little while when they're very young, you put up with it, like, very little while. And then you redirect it, because we want them to think biting is okay, but appropriate things as they get bigger. Yeah. So there's different, you have to look at the big picture when it comes to any type of teeth on skin interaction with the dog and where it's coming from. Then you also have to look, I think, if you have a dog willing to put teeth on from a behavior modification aspect, are you willing to change your life as well, while managing this and continuing behavior modification training? Because there is a level of management that you might have to have the rest of the dog's life. And some people are willing to pay for training and trainers and all that, but they're not willing to continue on with the management at home. And sometimes the management is almost sometimes a very most important part of keeping that dog successful in
It's
that
part
home.
of everyone's life who has a dog with behavior challenges. It's just that management doesn't ever stop. It fails often, always. At some point, it's going to go wrong. Equipment malfunction, whatever. But human error. But management is a part of life, right?
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. So I think in the future, it's probably going to be important to make sure make people be honest about whether they've been bitten or not. They can't lie to you about that.
It's a very important thing, like, not only to help the dog, but also for the trainer's safety, because it's
That's
not
what I'm
like,
talking about.
Yeah.
Because you had no knowledge of the
no, if I had not, like, because I've had dogs trying to redirect before, and it's just they're overstimulated, and there's not. If I had had the thought initially when I said bring the pugs, like dog's doing great, that the dog would escalate to the level that it did. If I hadn't thought like I'm gonna put the pants on just because I don't feel like getting nipped at today. If I had not put the pants on, that would have been an entirely different session.
So how many bites, when she redirected on you, where on your body, I mean, the number of times, where on your body were they? How many bites were there? What
So
was she going for? Did she go launch up?
So mainly the legs. So she got me, and I had pants on, the thigh, the calf, the inner thigh, and it was just like a nipping. She would grab. That's why I said, like from a bite perspective, very nice grips for a Doberman. She would grab and she just push and shake. So all the mechanics that you would look for in a very nice,
She went to the outside of the leg, the lower leg, and then to the inside?
yeah, yeah.
She wasn't kidding around.
No, it was like to start with very frenzied but very intense. And then in putting on the pants too, I can just stand there and give no reaction or add to any of that panic that's going on with the dog. And she kept going. And then after a while, like it's almost like it just left her body. She would stop
Right.
and she'd be calm for a second. Like, okay, I'm not stressed right now. And then we would be good. Like I could walk around, I could do obedience.
Did she go back to it again?
Yeah. So our first session with the pugs was about close to 2 hours, maybe an hour and a half of that I was in the suit. And the entire time, except maybe the last 20 minutes, she was redirecting.
So you stiff arm her. Did that make her angry?
No.
Okay.
No, it would. So I would straight arm, so you can't get me. And then she'd go back to relaxed, and you're like, okay. We'd check back in, and we'd move away, and then we're just walking. So nothing extra, just movement. And the pugs are just literally just sitting there, like being little pugs. So there was not like she was getting barked at by them, anything. There was just as soon as, and we didn't put the word heel into that until I had an outside perspective looking in and saying, okay, the heel is also triggering that. So every time that I would say heels, that's when it would escalate even farther. So the last 4 or 5 sessions that we did without using the word and just moving, way less stressful. You can even see, because I found one of our sessions around a different dog, there was no redirection section, but you could see how in her body language, when you would say heel, the way that she would move into that position, it was almost, even though it's very quick and it looked nice from a behavior aspect, if you're looking at it,
you saw rigidity.
You can see rigidity, and you can see a lot of stress going into position.
Are you going to post a clip? Did you say you got that on video?
Yeah.
So you guys go follow Farrell if you're not already, so you'll know what she's talking about when she posts that, who the dog is.
Yeah, because you can see it, and if you didn't have any context of all the other shit that had happened, you're like, that's a very fast heel. But seeing everything, and then going back and look at the video, I'm like, when I say the word heel, you can see that she's anticipating getting electrocuted, essentially.
Yeah. Oh. Well, I didn't realize that she kept going after you again and again and again. And then so after you put her up after that session, did she repeat that behavior moving forward?
So that's why after that session, and we ended on a good note on that session, because that was very important to me and all of us to at least get her to relax and be able to walk out of there, no redirection, even if that meant we're making more distance as we make our way out from it. So that's not the last note that she left on was, I'm going to bite the shit out of you as we walk out. Because that's not right for the dog. So after that session, not seeing any reactivity, redirection prior to that session, in my head, I'm like, I wonder if there's going to be fallout into other dogs after seeing that. So we tried it because is it only that dog, or now are we going to see more the more that reaction increases with the pug, or happens over and over again with the pug? Is it going to start bleeding out into the rest of her life with every dog that she sees? And it did.
It did.
Not to the severity of the pug, but with the French bulldog.
Anything that resembled that size?
Yes. Yes. That size and kind of structure. So with the doodles, which were similar in size, no reaction,
No,
curiosity
but it
play.
looked so.
That
Yes.
look there was, and it was very mild. It was more of like a kind of half-assed, not
But
committed
it's an
redirection.
association.
But it was
Right.
there, and that was, no e-car or anything, because not doing it. And so I'm like, okay, so now this is for me, like when I'm like, it at some point is gonna come out in something other than that pug.
Right. It's so risky. When I was asked to assess Jude, he'd been at like 5 different facilities, and he was out in some place in the desert eating rocks and treat log in California, actually. And I wasn't sure that I wanted to take him because I never had taken on a dog that I hadn't met, right? Like to live with me for an assessment for 3 months was like, I usually like to know the dog a little bit. And so the person that was his sponsor, very well off, just said, do you have any video of him around a dog? Like you're telling me it's a very severe aggression case. Can I see it in action? And so she took him to some idiot trainer in California who all I saw, there's a video of him working with Jude, like
Is that the small little white dog?
the same guy. First, he's like, Jude was like, hi, I'm Jude. And he's like, sit. Oh, he put his back to me. I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like that. I'm like, dude, the dog sat down. Like, he was so weird about everything. And then I never saw the introduction between the dogs. Never saw Jude response to the dog coming out. All I saw was Jude in, you know what a good dog collar is? The plastic prongs, right? Good dog collar, regular prong, probably an e-collar buried under there somewhere, and a muzzle and a slip lead. Like, you gotta have that much gear, you shouldn't be bringing another dog out.
For me, if you have a muzzle, why do you need an e-collar and a slip lead and all of that?
Well, because that wouldn't do anything for this dog. So he must have brought this tiny little white dog out. And I never saw the intro. All I know is that the white dog's leash was tied to the handle of a car, and that Jude was like on some kind of tie down thing, and he's lying down looking relaxed, but he was probably completely cortisol dumped from whatever they had to do to get him into that position to have the appearance. I never saw anything but a still shot, and the video was like Jude turning his back to the dog, and the other dog looked very nervous. So God only knows what happened in that. But to this day, any dog that looks small and white, those are the explosions that we have, because there's one that lives on this street. Huskies, no. Other large dogs, only if he's like locked in the car or whatever, speaking of the monster. But that association is deeply ingrained in his mind. And yeah, if not managed or rebooted and worked through behavior modification, it's a ticking time bomb.
It is, because it'll start to happen with not just things that look like that thing.
Yes.
Anytime the dog gets into a state of panic and stress, it's going to start bleeding out everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially if that's how every time the dog gets stressed or panicked, you're handling it as with a e-collar. It'd be different, like if the dog gets stressed and panicked and you're, working on different things, whether it be food, whether it be play, to kind of de-stress the situation. But if you're punishing the dog for being stressed, which happens a lot.
All too often, exactly.
The dog looked at the other dog, so I lit it up. It's like, I can look at things when I am out in public. Why can't the dog? Like, looking at something is not
punishable offense. Right. No. He does know I'm talking about him, Vanessa. You're right.
If we went to Disneyland and you said, Kerri, every time you see Mickey Mouse, I'm going to punch you in the face. Every time you look at Mickey Mouse, we would probably have a a really terrible relationship after that. It's the same thing for dogs, even reactive dogs or dogs with dealing with aggression and feelings towards dogs or people. If you're punishing just the looking, you're creating even more stress with the item that they're stressed about.
Yeah, it's such a shame. Well, I will keep you posted, you guys, on whatever it is we're able to find out. But the sad part is that there doesn't seem to be a resolution or a solution because of the breeder's contract. Because I'll bet between us we could find some place for the dog to go. I mean, as long as I have Jude, it's not an option. But I don't know how long I will have Jude, and at that point, I'll be looking for someone naughty.
No, I'll keep everyone updated too. Wednesday is when we'll be bringing her back. So hopefully the owner and the breeder stay in touch with us.
Yeah.
I think, I think that the owner will. Like I said, he is a very lovely guy. They have another Doberman who Khaleesi does fantastic. Another female intact Doberman. She just got spayed while Khaleesi was here, but he's familiar with the breed. He has experience with the breed.
Jude has cancer. Sorry. Go ahead. No, someone's asking me, what do you mean you won't have Jude?
Yeah, that's makes sense. Look at how sweet he is.
It is like a cement block.
So I'm hoping that he does. And like I said, he was very happy with the progress she's made. I do hope that the breeder continues with someone, even if it's not us,
Yeah.
to continue to help the dog. Because like I said, she is a wonderful dog. And it's just shitty. It's shitty that, a shitty training completely changed the projectile of projection for life. So.
Yeah, for sure. Does anybody have any questions before we both are released to have some food and
Some munchies and some more energy.
so another monster drink? And I hope that you enjoyed this. I'm hoping it'll be the first of many behavior cases that we can talk about and we're released. Anybody do you want to say anything, Kerri?
I'm glad that it's got to talk about this on a live. We've been talking about it since kind of it initially happened, because it's been like, I think if you're in the business of dogs, whether it be training, owning, anything, the dogs, humans obviously are in that equation too, but the well-being of the dog it hurts when you see what can be caused by shitty training. Because it's the dog that's affected, it's their lives, and it's just like, it bums me out, because I wish that I could tell them that I could fix it and guarantee all this, but I can't, because that's not reality.
No, it's not. And I think you've done an incredible job, and you're such a badass. And this is, I think, such an important reason why we have to stay really focused in terms of, not focused, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, but why the door should be open for people who train differently to have these conversations, because look how much we covered in this. And it has nothing to do with, do you use tools or do you not use tools? It's got to do with, the root causes of what can cause behaviors to go so seriously wrong. And whatever it is you're doing, you've got to be really good at it. It's not less about the tools and more about the skill and the understanding and the thoroughness and assessment and understanding how to approach behaviors that are more complicated, not take on things that you really aren't equipped to handle.
That's a huge thing.
Often, yeah. Right?
I think that's a big thing too for anyone in here that's also a pet professional. If there is something that you are not comfortable with, or it's not in your area of expertise, refer to somebody who it is. Yeah. At the end of the day, we're all here to make the dog's life better. Yes. And ego should have nothing to play. Just because I would like to try it doesn't mean I should try it, because I could do more harm than good.
Yes.
So I think being able to reach out to any part of the spectrum of dog training, tool usage, no tool usage, and be able to have very open, kind of judgment-free conversations on ways that each side might approach things, it's only going to help the dog at the end of the day to have
Yeah.
different perspectives on it.
And it
And
allows us to have conversations that we wouldn't have if we were sitting in the corner going, you're
yeah,
using
gotcha.
me. I don't know. I mean, it's so important for everybody to kind of be able to, when you're working with dogs like this, I mean, it's exhausting mentally trying to problem solve. It's creative thinking in so many ways. So be able to do that with a professional and friend that you respect and trust is really, really, collaboration is so important. So that's why I want us to keep these dialogues going. But okay.
KK, let me answer her. So
Yeah, please, no,
narrowing
answer all of them.
narrowing down a reliable trainer. So the first thing I would suggest, and we always welcome, go out and if they have a facility, visit their facility. If they'll let you watch some of their training sessions, is a good way to kind of see how they approach things. Ask them what they specialize in. If you're looking for something, as far as specialized training, whether it be BMOD, obedience, if you are a tool user, e-collar training, any of that, see how they do it. Ask questions is the biggest thing. Ask questions, but usually a visual for me. If I can see how the dog is interacting with the trainer, it gives me a
Yes, I was just going to say,
very,
watch Kerri's dogs around her and how she moves and her touch and her timing. You'll see that the dog is not flattened or suppressed in any way. So you want to watch the dogs, not just the trainers.
yeah, because the dog's body language doesn't lie. You can see if a dog wants to be there. And I'll even say with nervous dogs that might be there for behavior modification, for fear, confidence building and stuff, even a scared dog is going to show happier, lighter body language when they're comfortable with the person handling them, even if they're scared.
CJ, you're right. Everybody says they know how to do BMOD, but they don't. And there's obedience is not behavior modification.
No.
And I don't think most people realize that. And I also think that and again, I'm not going off on tool usage, but I think it's really important for pet parents who don't want to use tools to be able to ask a trainer, I'm not happy about tool usage. How would you approach this problem without them? Because anybody who knows what they're doing should be able to make that adjustment and not rely on a tool to communicate with the dog.
Yep, that's a very important thing because we offer, even though I use tools, my first question when we have a client come, if it's a dog that might need to be managed, not slip out of a collar because of a danger risk, we're going to put you either in a tight or flat collar or something. So it's not a risk for anybody, but for any other dog that's coming, when you don't have to worry about their equipment breaking, and that kind of stuff, just regular dog. What are you comfortable using on your dog? If they are not comfortable using any tools, then we don't use tools. Right. If they're not comfortable with using tools to start with, and maybe they reach a point because of maybe physical limitation, age, anything like that,
Yes.
That a tool might give them an easier way to handle the dog in certain situations, then let's introduce it then. But for me, if you can't teach a dog how to sit without using a prong collar, then you need to go back to the drawing board with how your skill set is.
There was a guy who kept showing up in my on Instagram who was just fighting with me all the time about, I haven't really changed my dog's behavior. Oh, okay. And I would watch his videos with his two very large bullies, and he was constantly correcting. One was on an e-collar, one was on a prong collar, and he'd look at the dog and he'd go, I'm going to correct you now. The dog was like, why?
Yeah.
That is not teaching. That is not, just because you put the gear on the dog doesn't make you a good handler or trainer. So be careful, everybody.
You have to teach, if your foundation is good, and I pride myself as well as the rest of our team in my foundation work. If your foundation is garbage, adding a tool is just going to make it a very unfair garbage.
Big pile of garbage.
Yeah.
Bigger pile of garbage.
If your foundation is good, the e-collar is going to be very minimal if you use it. And there's different applications for the e-collar too, as far as obedience goes. But you're going to be able to fade off of it. A lot of people get stuck on the e-collar because the foundation is weak.
Yeah.
Now you'll see a lot of my dogs in e-collars a lot of the time. A lot of that is depending on the dog that's out, but a lot of my dogs will do great bodily harm to people. So keeping that as
Such an important
consideration.
point. So
Yeah.
this was something that we talked about in our last live about Kerri's dogs are weapons, some of them, and they were trained to be that way. So she knows what she's dealing with and she handles it responsibly. So I think there are all different types of.
Your application is different for a lot of it. And for me, most of the time, if you see them in a tool, it is for management for something. Not necessarily, so for the e-collar, it's not stopping my dog from biting someone, but I hike a lot and it's for off-leash stuff.
Right.
If I need it, the amount of time I actually use it on the hike is usually nothing, but it's there in case I need it. Same with either a slip collar or a prong. One of mine, it's a slip and a flat and a safety back clip for both of them, because if he has the opportunity, he will inflict great bodily harm.
Right. And I think it really depends on what your dogs are being trained to do. I do not do protection or bite sports, or any of that. I'm primarily rehabbing trauma, but I do work with very large, powerful, unhinged dogs. And so the need is dependent on the dog. Like depending, I will flat out admit that I don't use them, so I'm not skilled at it.
But if you don't
It's
need,
been 10
if you
years
don't,
since I used it.
yeah, if you don't need to use it, and my thing too, like with any of my dogs, I should be able to walk you in a flat collar without any tools.
Yes,
If I can't
that's
do
true.
that,
That's
then you
right.
shouldn't have the tool on. Or even a harness. I always joke because I always see, and this is coming from a balance side, balance trainers talking shit on harnesses and flat collars like that. I can walk all my dogs on a flexi and a harness, and they'll
Right.
walk next to me and be under control. So the tool doesn't have anything to do with whether you're force free or balance. It comes down to, is your training good? Is your
I'm
training
in
good?
New
You should be able
York,
to
but
walk it
my
on
work
whatever
is
you want.
mostly, sorry, Kerri. Somebody asked me, I'm in New York, but almost all my work is virtual and I work worldwide because the stuff that I'm teaching is you have to get better at it. If I take the leash, then you're never going to get where you want to be because I'm going to be the one doing it. So,
I
yeah.
think harnesses are fantastic, and I use them for a lot of different applications. So obviously for the work, we use them tracking, trailing, the bite work stuff. I use them for hiking. There's a lot of places that I go that you have to have somewhat of a lift, load, carry harness for getting over certain obstacles. Harness is a way to give the dog freedom. Harness is a good way for exercise. Like all of my dogs
Absolutely.
can
Yeah.
across stuff, pull. Like if the dog knows how, like obedience wise, knows how to walk, it should be able to walk on a harness. Now, would I use the harness to walk through a crowd of people with some
No.
of the spicier dogs?
Totally
No,
ineffective way to
that
work.
would be
Right.
stupid because the dog is going to bite them.
Yeah. Right. You know that. But I think, I have often thought that while I don't use tools, or haven't in a very long time, that the ability to be skilled at the timing of using tools would be something I would be interested in learning, mainly because I'm just not. And I have listened to some pet professionals who have worked some really challenging situations because of their impeccable timing. I don't think my dog is a candidate for it. My last dog was not a candidate for it. Doesn't mean that at some point a dog I'm working with might not be. And I want to be accomplished in as many areas as possible. Up until now, I've never felt that I needed tools to get what I needed from the dog. I think it's as important for people who rely on tools to build the skills of not using them,
Yeah.
right? Because that's always going to be something that you may need to contend with. What's TikTok Farrell's handle? @Farrell. It's really complicated. Her real name is Kerri. Her name is not Farrell. Sorry. I should show up over there, but I don't know. Yeah, she's and if you look in my stories, I tagged her for this event tonight. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
think timing is everything with tool usage, and then two, your application. So if I will just say personal dogs, if I'm thinking about using a tool on there, the first things I ask myself, depending on the dog, is why do I need to add the tool in right now? What am I trying to accomplish with it? And how is this going to benefit my training? If there is a question mark with any of those, it's not time to put a tool in there.
right.
It's not. And because there's many ways that you can use them. You can use them like most of the time we think of, and it's not a knock at pet training. With pets, we think of stopping of behavior. With working dogs, a lot of times, and even some pets, it's the starting of behavior. So most of the time when I'm using a tool with my personal dogs, even though I can use it to stop, we'll say outside of the area where my dog could possibly bite somebody. Just training, like I'm on the training field stuff, or in hiking, something like that. I can use it to start as a catalyst for behavior. And I think a lot of times when it's used that way, it's just a way to communicate with the dog something. You won't see this flat body language because it's not a punishment. It's a
Tap on the shoulder.
Yeah. Yep. Like, hey, and I think that comes down to skill. And like we talked about with any aversive tool that you're using, because they all are meant to be aversive. Even if you are using it as a negative reinforcement, it is still annoying. It's the level of aversiveness. So annoying versus, I'm punching you, aversive. So if it's annoying, a lot of dogs, especially when you're dealing with dogs that were bred to have very high pain thresholds, very just kind of very low self-preservation. Those taps, a lot of those dogs, by looking at them, you can tell that they're fairly even mildly annoyed by them, but it's enough to kind of be subtle enough to get their attention with it. Mm-hmm. So that's a big thing to look at. And then a lot of people will see that because they'll ask me, and I'm very candid about using tools with my dogs. I want to do that with my dog. Well, not that my dog is any better than your dog, but I have one particular dog, Morty, who we've talked about, that I thought used to hate me and I didn't matter in his world, is not the best dog in the world, but he is a little bit different in the way that he perceives a lot of things. And he's all gas, zero brakes. That's just who he is in life. There's sleeping or not
activated, right?
Activated, yeah, that's his thing. And
that's the polite way to put it.
He's great in the house and all those kind of things, but it came with, a lot of just coexisting and learning each other. He is not, I would never integrate a tool with a dog like I did him, because he is all gas. Even with the tools for him is entirely a gas pedal. There is no brakes. There's no brakes. Brakes with him is a flat collar. So everything with training has a catch-22. So once you've made everything the gas pedal, good luck with making it a brake. So.
Which is why all of my training is building stop buttons.
Yeah.
Because I usually have, the larger bully breed dogs here, and the levels of arousal are so, they're so assertive and forward and pushy and excited, activated, all of that for me, I need brain power to go, you need to just stop for a second.
Just be still.
Be still for a second. Stop biting me. Stop pushing me. Stop trying to steal my dinner off the counter. All of that. Like Jude was so threatening because he'd just be like, whatever it is you have, I want it. I'm taking it. Get out of my fucking way. That's so rude, right? Like, so even if the dog goes, the hell you said? Like in that, the head pulling back reward. Yeah, that was sort of what I was after. Let's try it again with a little less gas. But over time, that stop button gets longer and longer. You get duration in there. And then the eyes I'm working on this protocol. I have been. Now I can't do it because it's not warm enough. It's freezing cold here. But there's this whole thing about the way eyes take in information, whether it's peripherally or directly, and the feeding feedback loop with the brain. So I am after the ability for the dog's body not to be in motion, the eyes to see, and the body not to have an opportunity to respond, but all by dog's choice, right? Not because I'm forcing them to do anything or because they're on shutdown with the tool or whatever it is. They offer the still position, the information is introduced, the capture is there and strengthened, right? And that then becomes this bigger and bigger and bigger picture where the dog's eyes are now able to look at everything that ignited them in the past without the brain and the nervous system going, rah!
Yep.
Because that's what I was dealing with. Up in the air and like explosion. No time to even like attempt to function with a dog like that. You would never have time to tap an e-collar or correct on a prong. It's instant explosion. Genie out of the bottle.
And that's how too, like specifically with my dog Morty. So he understands what a correction is. I don't have any problem with giving a fair correction, but it shouldn't be this yank and cranky thing. If you're trying to stop him from doing stop him from doing something, you're not stopping with him an e-collar. He'll blow through that. You're not stopping with him a prong. He'll blow through that. It's literally a split second. So I would never, if we're in those situations, that he is on a leash, because he does understand flat collar pressure phenomenally. We'll just turn and walk, or we'll just sit and watch with a relaxed leash. But you're not stopping him from going when he's made up his mind to go.
Right.
So I would have to have like Superman timing with that dog and be able to see into the. Morty is only 65 pounds.
Oh, he's a little dog.
65 pounds, and his max speed, I think I clocked him at like close to 38 miles per hour. So he's fast. That's from a dead stop. Yeah, he's a fast dog. He's my favorite. One of my favorites.
Well, because it took so much to get that relationship.
Took so much, but he is wonderful. But knowing that about him, that he will just go, I think a lot of people could take that into their head when they're thinking about utilizing a tool with a dog like that. If you're looking for dogs like that, whether you want to do sports and stuff like that, you're not stopping them with the tool.
No, you need to channel that into something that they enjoy. In answer to your question, is a shelter dog puppy more likely to grow up than a breeder puppy? Yeah. So a shelter dog, and Kerri and I talk about this all the time in terms of, precursors in terms of behavior, but a shelter or rescue dog is always more likely to have not had a stable foundation in life. In fact, if the mother was astray or in distress and there's an excess level of cortisol in the body, or they're it's almost like pre-blueprinted in utero, because their cortisol and adrenaline levels are high while they're still in mom's belly. But also being confined and closed up in a non-social environment with a bunch of other dogs that are also panicking, and not having a regular sleep cycle, and not having a gut healthy diet, and not having all of the things that you need for a nervous system and a brain to develop properly, you're absolutely going to see more challenging behavior in a dog that's coming out of an environment like that. So yes.
I agree with that. Are there exceptions to the rule? Yes, but as a whole, like when I have people, I have one of them. Like my oldest dog he was a street stray pickup, and that's where he was from. He's from the shelter, and he is the most well balanced dog. That was a gift, a gift.
You got lucky
from wherever you are.
You got lucky.
Was a gift. When people ask or are looking for a dog to do something specific as far as work, could you find it in a shelter? Sure, it's possible. Your chances are much higher going with dogs who have already, especially with an actual ethical breeder, whose parents, grandparents, all this temperaments, you can meet them, is very even keeled. Your chances are higher. Same with the health thing. Like Roswell is the love of my life. He was a pediatric neuter. He was diagnosed with hip dysplasia at 3. He's had hip surgery. Like, the health thing for me, and I would do it all over again because I love the dog so much. But
What?
knowing that and having that experience, I could never wish that on somebody else. To have the love of their life, just
Struggle.
his struggle. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I know. I keep telling
Makes me
myself the
sad.
next dog will come
Now
from
we'll
the
just
breeder.
cry.
Don't cry. I just keep falling into this same rut over and over again.
And I would do it again. Like, I've had quite a few rescues as well. Some just, like, we had one Ruger that he had just gotten he'd been in a car accident. He'd gotten returned. He was an extra over the top, very sweet dog. But just a lot of dog, and I think going into whether you're going to adopt or purchase, when shelters are honest about the dogs that they have, and what they're
Don't get me
struggling with.
started on that.
And then the same thing too with the breeder, not necessarily going with the look of the dog that you want. A lot of times breeders will pick for you when you tell them exactly what you're looking for. Like my Labrador, a lot of my dogs I've picked myself. I'm obviously a trainer. We do have a breeding program as well. So I knew what I'm looking for in that type of those type of dogs. With my Labrador, the breeder knew more about his dogs than I do. Like, I know what a lab is. I know how to train a Labrador, but he knew the personalities of his bitches, of his sires, what they produce. Like, he's been breeding for a long time. This is what I'm looking for. Grant is his name, and they're in Nebraska. This is what I'm looking for. If you have this in one of these pairings, I would love to own that. And they had it. There was a group of 3. He's like, these 3 males will do it for you. Pick, if there's one you like better. And it was perfect. So if you go to a breeder, trust that your breeder is going to give you, especially if they're good, the dog that you're looking for. Especially for a job, the temperament is way more important than the aesthetics of the dog. If you prefer aesthetics, then be prepared to wait. So,
or get what you get.
Or get what you get, yeah. So for me, like, I've had a deposit on a German Shepherd for like the last 4 years. I'm very specific on what I want. I'm going to be spending quite a bit of money. Temperament-wise, there's specifics. Color-wise, I'm a black sable fan. If I don't get all of them for the amount that I'm paying, I'll wait. I'm not in a hurry for this unicorn of a German
breeders
Shepherd.
that you're buying from in the U.S.?
So the German Shepherd breeder, yes. With the herders, I've both imported and then second generation, like Morty parents were imports. His kids obviously were born here. So a little bit of both. It is kind of, I have seen some like import horror stories too, where you're not sent what you picked out. But I think that can happen within the States too. So it's just really important. I'm not a fan of the 6-month import age, personally, from someone who wants the puppy from the get-go.
Right.
But I don't see
when would you want it? 3 months?
So I would like it between like 8 and 12 weeks.
Right.
12
3
weeks.
months. Yeah.
It's a very, I think, pivotal part. If I'm looking for a 6-month-old dog, I might as well just get a green dog, which is, between 1 year and 18 months old. Because I'm going to know exactly how that dog is, and the price is going to be about the same. So
you want to shape it as early as possible.
Yeah.
That bonding process, get it on.
Glutton for punishment.
Yes, apparently. All right. Well, I'm going to let you go.
I enjoy
let
this.
me go.
Yes.
Take my dog out onto the ice to go potty before he goes to sleep. He's passed out behind me, I think. This was wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing this story and case with everybody. And I'm anxious to hear what happens.
Yeah, I am anxious to see what happens. It's kind of like I'm very invested, I guess, in the dog. Just because she's lovely and she just was done so dirty. So I'm hoping that we get to see where she continues.
But you know what? I'll tell you something. I think part of the reason this was a conversation I wanted to have is because not all endings are happy endings.
Yeah.
And I think as professionals, there has to be a point that we're pragmatic and thoughtful in the way we look at the situations that we're forced to cope with, right? Like instead of trying to put a band-aid on everything or make it all better, just ignore me saying I'll take her all.
No, you have to. And then also, like, as professionals too, like, I could keep taking this guy's money and it's obviously it's going to help the dog, the more work, but it's not going to help their relationship. So
No, if he's afraid of her, he's afraid of her, and that's gonna.
I think as a professional, you have to draw the line. And even though, you know, we all like to get paid, that's why to, you know, fund our dog habits and all of our dog things.
Yes.
But you can't let the what is the word I'm looking for? Getting more money out of the situation. Yeah. As the point, because, you know, I have bills to pay, but I would rather not sell him a dream that might not ever be a reality to him.
Exactly. So. That's fair and ethical, I think. So that's what we think. Hope this was helpful for everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. You're very welcome, and I'll speak to you tomorrow.
Yep.
Sometime soon. All right, I'm going to sign us all off. It was a pleasure as always. Go play with your dogs. I'm going to go have something to eat, and I will speak to you guys soon. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Good night. Bye.
Good night.